So hello and welcome. My name is Steve Pugh and it's Monday the 14th of November. I can't believe how fast this year has gone. And if you're in England like I am, it is pitch black outside. One of the things that really blows me about British winters is just you go from late nights and it's sunny till like 9 o'clock at night to just dark. And it's a really kind of funny one. But for me, especially when I'm working through the week, I often used to work kind of late night into the evenings, but now it just feels dark and tired. So I almost feel tired now. But anyway, I have a fabulous guest for you. So I'm going to introduce you to Toby Cannon, who's a friend of a friend. So James, who was on the podcast a while back, he's a startup founder. He's got a really interesting background as a software engineer. We got some mutual friends. We're both sports people, and actually just hopefully some good banter and also some good knowledge, kind of sharing about his journey, stuff he's been through that hopefully is of interest. So you can follow us on my LinkedIn. You've got all the Roadmap MBA channels. You've got YouTube, you've got Facebook, you've got loads of different stuff, and also Instagram as well if you're on there as well. And then likewise, if you drop any comments, they will pop up on my screen, and if they're not rude, I'll bring them in to kind of ask Toby as well. So Toby, there we go. People can now see you and hear you.
Super. Hello.
Perfect. How's your Monday been?
It's been good. It's been good. I agree with you about the dark evenings and the dark mornings. I try and get in the gym before work, and it's way harder to leave the house when it's still pitch black and feels like you should be sleeping. But it's good. It's been a good Monday so far.
And actually, I think people can just about see over your left shoulder. You've got a basketball as well.
I do. Yes, I didn't play basketball until I was about 17 or 18, and you can't really see the video, but I'm 6'6",
Yep.
so I think I was just fed up of being asked, "Do you play basketball?" And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start playing basketball, and absolutely love it.
No, I must, because with as I joked on the social post, I think this is the tallest interview of the year, because I'm 6'3". But actually, one of the things I always find this funny, but a lot of the people I choose to speak to on the podcast have common traits and stuff, and I was like, wow, is that just a fluke? And it's not, because I just pick the guests. But actually, same with us and James and a lot of the people I speak to, I think there are a lot of common kind of themes and people that are into competitive sport that relates to business. And actually, I always love it when people have got a background, because to me, it although it shouldn't, maybe it's just a bias. For me, it tells me a lot about people's character and background and work ethic, especially if it's a team sport. Although, not everyone plays a team sport. James played tennis, for instance. But no, I always also find it quite funny. It's what people choose to put in their background of their video shots.
Yeah, it's like nothing's there by accident, right? Everything, you look at all the Zoom backgrounds, and I mean, this shelf by itself was bought purely for Zoom backgrounds in a remote world. It's got nothing functional on there at all. It's all props. But like you say, when you're on video calls, that's the window into someone's life. That's your kind of you into what interests them, what they want to represent as their personal brand. I think it's a really cool one.
Yeah, sweet. So would you be happy, before we jump into the main kind of interview, just to kind of give a quick 30-60 seconds just about who you are, where you're from, and then we'll dive into your backstory and how you kind of got started. Is that cool?
For sure, yeah. So Toby Cannon, I'm currently based near Nottingham now, in the UK. Background was computer science. So was at the University of York, did computer science. That's where I started playing basketball. Had a blast, absolutely loved it there. First year, I was kind of thinking, I really don't like computer science. It feels like just nerds writing code, which it partly is, but in a really good way. And I kind of fell in love with it, absolutely loved it. Landed a graduate job at Capital One, who are a credit card company. Loved that, was there for 2.5 years or so. So moved around loads of different teams with their rotational program, basically building all the kind of the back-end platforms, that kind of stuff that you don't really see, that goes on. Learn a ton about software engineering, but more importantly for me, about team culture, that rotation scheme. Such a good experience to get insights into how different teams function, like our day-to-day operations. When the pandemic hit, started, this is a bit of a side project, which is Myles Wellbeing, what I'm working on now. So that was, 2 and a bit years ago, and made the plunge, made the jump, and went full time on it just over a year ago now, about 13 months ago.
Because I must have, with that jump, especially for a side hustle to then go full time, because like full transparency, people often think I'm full time on the roadmap, but I'm not. 70% of my time is doing stuff for other people to earn the money to pay for everything else. So that jump to go proper full time, I genuinely respect and resonate with, because I haven't got there yet. But actually, I respect people that have. So I think that's really cool. And then likewise, anyone, as we go through Toby's kind of backstory or journey, if you've got any questions or anything, yes, message in and I'll happily ask. So where did you grow up?
I grew up for most of it, in a small village towards Derby. I was born in a place called Wakefield, which isn't far from Leeds. We then moved down in a village near Derby, kind of between Derby and Burton-on-Trent, if anyone knows that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then went up to York for uni, and now currently between Nottingham and Loughborough is where I'm based now. I quite like the village feel, the village atmosphere. Going for like a lunch walk and having little fields to walk around. That's my scene.
Oh, cool. What were you like at school? Were you, I guess, a sporty kid, or were you rebellious? Are you naughty?
I think I was like just super vanilla. There was nothing where it was like, oh, Toby was the joker, the really clever one. Like there was no, apart from my height, I always stuck out a little bit because I was quite tall growing up, but there was no real like distinguishing features. I think just being big,
Mm-hmm.
as when you're in kids at school, people kind of look to you as a bit of like a leader almost, just purely through like physicality. So that was interesting. Just like very boringly normal. I think I always had a bit of a spark for techie things, as so did some of my friends. So like the early stages of crypto and that kind of thing, we were kind of toying around with that and getting all excited by that kind of stuff, and I liked kind of hacking things together and making things work, and always trying to kind of figure out, like, never really getting into trouble, but just being just on the border of it, which I think is what you. Yeah. But that's what you need in a startup kind of world. You need to know, like, how can you push this space? What can you do differently? How can you not just follow what the trend is and figure things out, really?
I think that's a really good analogy, actually, because my wife, and she would admit this, is the opposite of that. So if there's a rule book, she's a solicitor, so she's a lawyer and she sticks to the rules. Like, if that's the rule, that's it. As where I'm like the opposite, where, okay, I get the rule, but my interpretation of it is to do that. But also for a lot of entrepreneurs, founders and stuff, by its very nature, you're challenging the status quo, because if you believed that what was currently existed was as good as it could be, you wouldn't bother. So what's often a common theme with people I speak to is that they often have that streak where they just want to test the line, or just go completely over the line and just see. But it's that rebellious streak that not everyone has. But actually, sometimes you could argue, to really push society forward, you need those outliers that will just go and just see what happens, even if it explodes. If anything, that just tells the rest of the tribe, okay, don't do that. That was dangerous.
Yeah, sure. And I think when pushing boundaries and things, the misconception is you're not saying like, I think this is right. Mm-hmm. You're trying to say, I'm trying to work out if this is right. What is the reaction to this? What do people think? How is this going to be received by the tribe? Like you say, I'll report back later and tell them to do this or not to do it. It's not saying, I think this is right. It's saying, I wonder whether this is right or not, and like figure it out. And I think it was yourself that introduced me to the term, is it blue ocean thinking?
Yeah, blue ocean strategy. Yeah.
Blue strategy, yeah. So trying to figure out there, what are the things that we believe to be true right now?
The common assumptions.
What can we change based on that kind of thing?
Yeah, and but genuine the whole blue ocean strategy thing. Just anyone that might tune in. So it's all to do with if you have a common assumption that is standard in an industry. So for me, with business education, for university type stuff, you always needed buildings and big teams and lecturers and curriculums and all this kind of stuff. And actually, if you look at anyone in the market, they all do the same thing. And actually, if you go on Udemy and YouTube and whatever, they all have 100,000 plus courses, Skillshare, that you can go on and do all this stuff. And it's all about, it's an arms race to do more. Blue Ocean Strategy is looking at, okay, well, why do actually you need 100,000 courses? Why do you need buildings? Why do you need that? And actually, you can purposely pivot on the weak point, the thing that you think otherwise. So for instance, with the roadmap, we offer one course. It's all remote. We don't have university accreditation. We don't have a big team, but it means that we can do it for free to help people that wouldn't have access. But the idea being, if everyone looks this way and they're going more, and it's big arms race, the red ocean, it's all the blood in the water for competing in the same space. The blue ocean is to look at, okay, well, actually, I see what they're doing, but I'm going to try this. And just for anyone that didn't know the background, it's that thing of where I think a lot of the best people have done that and tried that, because it doesn't have to work, as you say, but you're not then competing head to head against people with 100 times the budget and profile and stuff. So have you ever actually implied or used that with any of the stuff that you're doing?
I mean, definitely not deliberately, because it was a term that I think you introduced me to a few months ago. So, and I never thought of it as if I just kind of took it as a term, as a good term. But I guess, yeah, if you're a fish in the sea, you don't want to be in the red ocean where everyone's fighting each other. You want to be in the nice blue ocean. I hadn't kind of made that analogy.
No, it's cool. But what's quite, and it's just one of my personality traits, is that where did I first discover it? I'm not even sure. But I'll go on YouTube, I'll watch it, and I watch this one video. And the video itself was an hour, so I watched it like 1.5 speed. And actually the video was really good. So I bought the book, and the book was like 300 pages. But the book didn't actually teach me anything that the 1 hour free talk didn't. But it just blew my mind, and I was instantly on it. I was like, oh, I love this stuff. But it can make such a difference. And part of the reason, I'm not even sure how I discovered it, it might have been on a podcast. It's this education and knowledge and sharing of real live actual stuff is a completely different way to do broadcasts. You know what I mean? And it's just, I love people that just push and change and stuff and try things and fail. And so how did you find university?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, York as a city is fantastic. For anyone that hasn't been, like, I definitely didn't appreciate it as much as a student that I do now. Like, we're a fully remote team of 5, and we try and meet up once every 4 to 6 weeks. And we've done York a few times. We still have really great links with the university there, and it's also just a fantastic city. And you go back as a non-student, you're like, wow, this is beautiful. I appreciate all these like things that I've never even noticed before. But it was good, yeah. So went into first year, did computer science. And by like November time, like I touched on a little bit earlier, I was kind of like, forget this is not for me. There's like a computer science box for the type of student you have to be to do computer science. I just felt like I didn't fit in that box. I wasn't kind of smart enough academically to do all this stuff, and I didn't really enjoy it. And I just felt a bit like different. I was like, you know what, I'll really try and swap to more of a business kind of course. Mm-hmm. So the course was accountancy, business finance and management. And because we're already about 5 weeks in, they said like, no, you're too late. You have to wait till next year. And so I kind of went back for the Christmas holidays and thought, like, what do I do here? Do I leave? Do I come back? Do I look at other routes like apprenticeships and things? I had started filling out like apprenticeship applications, thinking, yeah, I might just drop out of uni and leave this. Mm-hmm. And January came around, and I thought, you know what, let's go after it. Let's do it for a year. And the worst case is I spend the same amount of time. I get 1 year computer science and then do some business stuff, and that might be quite cool. Yeah. And then got to the end of it, found some cool kind of people that resonated with me. I had like looked at different like grad jobs I could go into, look at the kind of work I could be doing. I thought, you know what, let's stick it out and see how it goes. So I was then lucky enough to get an internship at Capital One in my second year summer. So first year summer, I went to do Camp America, which is where I met James, who was on the podcast. And that was fantastic. Really good 3 months, just completely different to studying computer science. This was like, you're sleeping in this cabin in like rural New Hampshire. There's bears around. You're waking up, teaching these kids to like wakeboard, water ski for like 3-4 months. And that was absolutely fantastic. Came back into it and thought, yeah, summer after, I'll get a proper job. So went to Capital One for that summer and just tried to get involved in like different bits at the university that would help me get different skills that weren't purely academic computer science. So got involved with some like consulting stuff, looking at consulting roles, organised a few bits, got involved with the basketball team, became captain of one of the college basketball teams. And that gave me like a big drive because York is collegiate like a few other universities in the UK. So you have separate colleges that make up the university. Mm-hmm. You're really good at sports. You can play for the university team. I wasn't good at basketball, so I played for the college team, which is fantastic because it still gives you that element of competition and that kind of stuff. But the university teams, like you probably know from uni as well, right, Steve, they have big socials, there's a big culture around it. It's very culture focused. The college teams, especially the basketball teams, when I was there, didn't really have the same kind of thing. It was like a group of mismatched people that would turn up at the weekends, play, they'd go away again, not really talking in between. And when I came into it, I thought, you know what, let's try and make it feel like more of a team. And I remember the first social we organised. So let's try and get everyone in one room in a non-basketball setting and just see what works. I remember being terrified, thinking this group aren't going to talk, like, it's going to be really weird, it's going to be horrendous. And it was absolutely fantastic. Like that group is still really close now, with even the new plays and things. Once you graduate from, people still stay close. Yeah. And it was pretty magic just seeing a group who didn't really know each other, didn't particularly like each other, just grow over that year. And it taught me a lot about growing teams and that kind of stuff.
No, that's sweet. I was fortunate enough that I was on the Sheffield basketball first team, but in our league, it was arguably kind of Sheffield and up. So it was Sheffield, Leeds, Sunderland, Hull, Newcastle, Northumbria, and then Leeds has got like 3 different universities and different ones. But I remember in some competitions we did play in York once or twice. But you're completely right. It's that team. And what I think is quite funny that people don't appreciate is that when you are social set, club captain or whatever, it's managing budgets, it's getting people excited about events, it's marketing, it's getting people to do stuff, it's organization, there's so much stuff that you learn doing that across at least from my background, a lot of the Sheffield people that did organized team sports, they've gone on to these incredible things. And it's just, I think you do learn a lot from doing that. And I have, respect for anyone that goes out and tries, because especially if you're doing it for the first time, so you creating that and not knowing how it's going to go, I think you'll probably learn a lot of leadership lessons and stuff through doing that kind of thing than you ever would on a course. Do you know what I mean? And it's that kind of lived experience and stuff. And then likewise, doing computer science, I always used to joke as well about that when I first went to uni, which was in 2002, media studies was a bit of like a joke course where it was like, what's the easiest course you can do? Oh yeah, it'd be that. But then you fast forward 15, 20 years and arguably computer science is top, would be, oh, I didn't see that one coming. And then it's like the most valuable thing in the world just because of the growth in tech and everything else that, having those skills is mega, mega valuable. And it's just brilliant to see people do that because I did mechanical engineering, which again was mega techy. But I relate to what you said is that of the people on the course, a lot of them were like mega academic, as in like some really high level maths, and they would nail it. And I would just scrape through on certain subjects. But others, which were more to do with marketing, management, strategy stuff, I loved that. I found my niche. And where I think entrepreneurs fit really well is that when you have a technical background that you can sit on and you understand the remit of the thing, but you've also got the drive and the other skills that can mash together. So for instance, you being a software engineer, but also like entrepreneur, you get it, you understand it, but you have skills that most software engineers don't. Does that make sense?
It sure does. Yeah. I think if you imagine one of those, I forget what the graphs are called, but you have different
Venn diagram.
Not a Venn diagram, but like a similar-ish, where you drag different skills out, but you've only got a certain area that is your kind of skill set.
Like on FIFA. You're going
exactly
fast or strong.
Yeah. So I think where some people, like you're kind of talking about there, love a certain area. I love diving super deep on one area of mechanical engineering and love getting really deep into problems. I think what I enjoy most is kind of learning the surface stuff and then learning something new. Mm-hmm. I think that's like why I quite enjoy doing startup stuff, because you need to know just enough, but not spend weeks and weeks diving into an area where there's some other things going on here that you also need to be diving into. I really enjoy being quite a generalist rather than diving into one area. But the world 100% needs loads of people that are really happy to dive into one area, can have really deep focus, deep work, love spending decades figuring something out. And I think that's why when you're building a team, make sure there's different kinds of people that like doing different things like that.
No, it's cool. One of my friends, Pete, we both did the same degree, but he works on heat exchangers near Derby for Rolls-Royce on jet engines.
Sure.
And he's coming up to 20 years on this one thing. I'm the complete opposite that I knew before I was even like graduated. I don't want to do that. I like change and variation and stuff. And it's just different people have different skill sets. And I think I don't think I appreciated how important that is until relatively recently. And it's just, it's really, you want again, like various computer games, you need someone that's really good at that and then someone that's good at that. You don't want two of those same. It's a brilliant kind of dynamic. So also throughout your kind of career, you've had more than one business, is that right?
Yeah, that's like, this is the one that definitely kind of put in all the eggs into this one going full time. This is the first business that I've been full time on, which is my own. But I think I was always intrigued by money growing up. I think that's what sparked it, but that's the motivation to move now. But that's what kind of sparked the interest in business. Like, I remember it was the funniest thing. My aunt and uncle, when I was about 10, bought me this little like ATM type thing I had in my room. I could put my pound coins in there, watch the balance go up, and I used to get fascinated by money, really, to the point where I started thinking, okay, maybe this is slightly before then, but like, what can I do at home to like earn money? And I'd be like, going to my mum saying, "Mum, how much will you pay me to sharpen this whole pot of pencils? Like a penny a pencil I'd be going through," or she'd bring like craft paper back, like glittery paper, and I bought this like cutter. And I'd cut these things up, put them in bags, and sell them back to her so she could put them in birthday cards that would open out. And I was always trying to think, how can I make some money? So did a few crypto bits. Like I quite like making websites and that kind of thing. So had a few like various blogs and other websites when I was kind of like between 13 and 16. One was a website called King Doge, where people paid me Dogecoin to be King Doge for the day, and try to set up different things like in the very, very early stages of crypto. But then started getting like slightly more serious with it, and that's when I launched the clothing brand, which was Blurred Edge Apparel. And that was, I was never really that into fashion. I'm still not that into fashion now. I wear this jumper like most days with a black t-shirt underneath. But I thought, okay, I've got Photoshop, I can make a website, and I like business. What can I do? I'll start a clothing brand. And it was that kind of a brand targeted for like this kind of skate scene and modified car scene and all that kind of stuff. And it taught me a lot about just that hard B2C. So when you're selling to end customers, like sales is, how I don't really have a set like marketing strategy. A lot of it was like me messaging and starting to automate some of that.
But you learn so much doing that I think this is one of my big things that like we've both been fortunate enough to go to university, but when you look at academic theory on stuff, it doesn't even compare to I would take the kid who's 16 that will pick up the phone or message people to really flog stuff, because the truth is 90% of people would never do that. But my point is, you're learning stuff that people who know will recognize that's the kid I want, as opposed to the MBA grad with the first who went and did that and that, but they've never really worked on a farm or in McDonald's or done a paper round or sharpened pencils. And it's I love that hustle, but you'll be amazed at how much you learned doing that just embedded in you to really help you with what you do now. So do you want to tell us about the business now, what you do, and almost what problem you solve?
For sure, yeah. So I mean, it pivots a little bit. So I'll kind of zoom out a little bit, zoom back. So January time before lockdown, I realized I was like sitting down for way long, being a software engineer. I was like sitting down for so long every day. And then you finish work and you sit down after work. I was like, this isn't very healthy. This can't be good. So I quite like setting those kind of big goals. January time, I booked in for a marathon, which was in April. And this is a Manchester Marathon, which is by no coincidence is the UK's flattest marathon, or one of them. So I thought I'll book in for that one. That sounds good. And then like 2 weeks before that, so I did this all like horrendous training. I've been waking up at like 4 a.m. before work, doing a 3-hour run and all this kind of stuff. 2 weeks before the marathon, the pandemic hit, so the marathon was postponed. And I was meant to be doing it with my dad and my brother as well. So I thought, okay, I've now got slightly more time in the day. I'm not commuting. We need a way to keep our motivation high. So I was always like fascinated by psychology of sport. So if I said to you, like, Steve, go and run as far as you can and stop. Tell me when you want to stop. You stop at a certain point. But if I said, Steve, here's £1 billion to do one more step, you'd be able to do that one more step, which shows us there's such a weird link between what's mentally stopping you and what's physically stopping you. So I thought, okay, how can we use tech to solve this problem? And the year before that, to give you the full picture, me and my dad cycled from Land's End to John O'Groats. So I thought, okay, I'll hack together an app that'll let my family collectively run from Land's End to John O'Groats. And that will give us the motivation. And we found that hybrid of competition, we're on this on the leaderboard, but also collaboration. We were like moving the needle together. Did like wonders for motivation. So we thought, okay, there was demand for this. Other people wanted to use it. So we launched that in August after lockdowns, a proper app that people could use. So August 2020, I think. And that was like a virtual challenges app. So you could run from London to John O'Groats, coast to coast of America. You could cycle the Panama Way, all this kind of stuff. And there was big demands from corporates, from companies who had their workforce at home. And they like screen time since the pandemic is up about 80% in some cases. They were thinking, how can we get our employees to move? Okay, we'll do an office to office steps challenge. And we provided all the tech for them. So we did that for about a year and a half or so. And then realized that there must be something more than this. Steps challenges are great, but they're a great like first step if you're part of the pod. They're a great like starting point. They're not very kind of simple. If you're not using some tech, it's normally some poor soul that's got an Excel spreadsheet. Everyone's sending the data in, which makes them quite expensive. Actually, you actually count up the person I was doing it. It's quite expensive. They're not very inclusive either. And I really realized that with one of the companies we were doing it for. It was when like track and trace was pinging people and they couldn't go outside. They were trying to do this challenge. They were emailing us saying, hey, what can I do rather than steps? What can I do? And we kind of tagged on bits like, oh, you could do some star jumps, or hey, the translation value or the conversion value. But then we realized that's actually the reality for a lot of people before COVID, after COVID. If they can't do steps, they don't want to do steps, they can't do as many steps for whatever reason, through choice, disability, or something else, they can't take part in these kind of programs. So we set about 7 months ago to build a physical wellbeing platform for desk-based employees that was simple, inclusive, and focused on sustainable motivation. So that the business problem is desk-based workers sit down too long. And our solution is how can we tap into psychology and use tech to encourage them to use more, to move more.
No, cool. I'd love to know with there's Professor Steve Peters, who is the famous psychologist for a lot of the GB team. And he's got his book, The Chimp Paradox, but I really love the actual kind of that side to it, because I'm always interested, why do people do things? Because one of the biggest issues that I face with the roadmap stuff, similar to exercise, people know they should do it. They know they'll benefit from it, but they kind of just don't want to. Oh, I'm too busy. But there are huge similarities there. The part of the thing that, I don't know if you use, but we've got an app coming in kind of December-ish time. And one of the big things is to push notifications, and just that little nudge, that little bit of encouragement can go a long way. That I'm trying to think what I had on my, oh, that's what it was. So basically I have a Peloton bike there, which I do classes after work. And I hadn't used it for a week because I sprained my ankle playing basketball, so I couldn't. But it was like, Steve, you haven't done anything for a week. You don't want to lose your kill streak or whatever it was.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and you look at apps like kind of Snapchat that prove just how much you can tap into someone's psychology. I've got this streak, I've got something, and I don't want to lose it. I think the Chimp Paradox is a fascinating kind of thing, and I forget the book that I read it in. I'll ping you after this one, but it was basically described your brain as one of these really famous ones, as an elephant and a rider. And the elephant is the subconscious brain, the rider is the conscious brain. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to try and build a habit, go on your Peloton bike, don't just try and use your conscious brain. Don't think, okay, I'll remember to do it, because you won't. Like the human brain has had tens of thousands of years, more than that, of trying to take the shortest path, trying to preserve fat in the body, trying to make sure that you live for longer. But the world's very different now to what it was then. But we still have that kind of hardwired in our brain. So if you want to build any kind of habit or do something good that you find difficult, don't try and get the rider to control the elephant, try and train the elephant. So if in the room the cream cake's in the corner, the elephant's going to go to the cream cake. So hide the cream cake away, and that'll make it way easier for yourself. Like leave a note by your bedside table saying, Steve, I should go on the Peloton this morning. Like, I note to your future self. Or like you say, nudge theory is fascinating. Just having something that's like in front of you to give you that nudge, oh yeah, I should probably do that, really helps the brain's like value action gap. We think we're super smart humans, right? Which we all are. But I'm sure we can all think of a time where we felt we should have gone on the Peloton, or we should have gone to the gym, or called a relative. We actually thought, you know what, I'm just going to watch one more episode of whatever this is, even though we know that was the wrong thing. But when we're in control of our body and ourselves, we still do the wrong thing. So it's how do we, as humans, close that value action gap, and that makes life like way easier and less tiring if you are focused on the elephant and not the rider.
Yeah, that's cool. So did you start bootstrapping when you said obviously you made the first draft and you got something live, and then is it correct that you raised fundraising or finance at a certain point?
Yeah, so the first draft was like super hacky. Like I think I made it in about 6 hours, 7 hours. I got a screenshot somewhere. It looked horrendous. We kind of polished it a bit, made the second version of the app, which is the one we did the steps challenges for companies, and that was still bootstrapped at that point because I was working full time. I suddenly had like all the evenings and weekends free because it was lockdown. You couldn't do anything anyway, so that was like the timing was just perfect. And then kind of thought, you know what, let's let's make this into a real thing. Let's really try it, and let's try and raise some funding, which you're right. So we closed our pre-seed round in January this year, I think, which was, I told you them 40K or told you them 50K, I think, which is really great. A, to get some money into who grow it, but B, to get external validation that other people genuinely believe in it too. We're quite lucky that we've got a really great group of investors who believe in the vision, believe in the mission, very knowledgeable and happy to support us. So it's been quite fortunate there.
Can I ask how you found those investors? Because this is the one thing that a lot of people are interested in, especially the same kind of people that would be interested in crypto. You go on YouTube, how to raise investment, how to do this, how to find investors, how to, for yourself, how did you go through that process?
I mean, to start with, it's really, really, really hard. And we were very, very lucky to kind of caveat all of this. But I think if like the past few years, I was almost like treating everyone you chat to as an investor. You never know how someone could help out in the future and how you could help them out in the future as well. So just kind of building those connections was key. And like when we started doing this, before we even knew we were going to raise funding, like chatting to these people that we had in our networks just through, I'm saying we here, so it's myself and my co-founder, Mike, at this point, chatting to different people that we'd met beforehand and asking them for like genuine advice. Like we didn't know we were going to fundraise at this point. So a lot of it was just genuinely, how do we navigate this? Can I have some advice? And once kind of get on their radar, they know people. And the biggest thing I'd say is it's like so much harder to try and get in somewhere, to get an investor to invest you when it's completely cold.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying cold, you didn't need to have known them for years beforehand, but at least been on their radar. Maybe you messaged them a year ago and got some advice, or maybe you've been connected with them on LinkedIn and interacting in that way. If you just go to a VC completely cold, hey, this is what I'm doing, can I have some money? For sure, you might get some meetings somewhere, but a lot of them would much rather have some kind of warm intro and warm leads. And yeah, that's why we were quite fortunate. We got chatting to a few people who knew other people, and like these people, investors, venture capital firms, are probably some of the most well-networked people like in the UK. They'll know so many people that can help out. But I think one of the important things is to figure out what you want from the investment. It might just be cold hard cash, which is fine in some cases, but you might want an investor that's got experience in your area, that kind of the smart money it's called. You might want a venture capital firm that just focuses on ed tech or something in that kind of space, and figuring that out first and starting to have those chats. But I think the main thing is that whenever you're asking for an investment for, no one's ever going to believe in it as much as you believe in it. And if you don't believe in it that much, they're not going to believe that much either. So making sure it's something that you're behind, that you genuinely see the future in, you can convey that quite succinctly to someone else and bring them on the journey with you would be my advice. Make sure you believe in it fully before you go after funding.
Did you have, because the one thing in some of the early chats I've had, people are like, okay, what are your metrics? What's your revenue? What's your monthly growth rate? And da-da-da. How much of that did you have, or you were still for kind of pre-revenue idea stage?
So we had revenue. We didn't have loads of revenue. We had some revenue. But what we did have was quite good validation that like all of our traffic was organic. We managed to grow the app, like the Challenges app, to about 20,000 users organically.
Wow.
And we managed to work with companies like Capital One, Brewing Dolphin, Dell, Mind, some regiments of the army, and a few big names that just could have, during COVID, they really wanted something they could use.
And did they find you, or did you find them?
They all found us, apart from Capital One, because I had links there. They all came straight to ours. Like the website was kind of fine. It wasn't that great, but they managed to kind of find their way onto it and get in touch. And yeah, it was good.
Amazing. Because that's often half the challenge. It's how do you find your differentiated value proposition? How, out of all of the apps out there that all are fitness stuff, the Joe Wicks and whatever, how do you make yours stand out? But then how do you get it to the point? And it's incredible if people find you, because it's like sales by its very nature is brilliant when you can reach out to people, they're interested and they buy it. But in many ways, especially for a scale-up business, you don't have an infinite number of people or phone calls, so therefore you can't really go. But if people can find you and search you, and then it's naturally coming in, that's amazing. That's so well done. And then what's the dream for you and investors, or what's the next phase? Do you plan like a Series A or a next step?
Potentially. Well, like the plan is to really grow it. We're a startup, so there'll probably be some more rounds in there going forwards. We built out this new employee wellbeing platform. We did a bit of a soft launch of it last month, and so now
I love how this is like current. This is the way it should be, by the way. But you know what I mean? But it's the fact that when I went to TEDx in Newcastle on Saturday, and like a lot of speakers are brilliant, but it's stuff they did like 10 years ago, which is brilliant to hear about because you only ever hear the successful people because everyone else doesn't. What I love is hearing people that, oh yeah, we did this today. We did that last week. Because that people resonate with that, because hopefully, because this goes on YouTube, in 5-10 years time, you'll be able to look back and be like, oh yeah, see when I was in my spare bedroom with basketball. So sorry, but the point is I love that what you're doing is like now or this month or last month or whichever.
Yeah, it was still super early stage, because of the pivot as well. Like it kind of like took us back, but deliberately. So yeah, the platform was like a soft launch last month. We're now getting companies like signed up and using it and trying to get all that feedback, because it's only startups that are trying to do things a little bit differently. The main goal isn't to get to profit straight away, at least in our mind. The main goal is to try and get product market fit. So what you want is loads of feedback, talk to everyone, hopefully get good reviews and figure out where that path takes you. So the next 6 or so months for us is just getting companies using the platform, getting their feedback and figuring out what we can do differently, what we should keep, and how we build from there.
That's cool. Because I guess that is an easier sales message, because you're not pushing the sales bit where there's a barrier where people are like, it's just saying, look, this is what we're doing. Can we get some feedback? Is it good? What would you like that we did? What doesn't work? And, you know, people always love to share their opinion. Does that make sense?
I completely agree with you. Completely agree. And it's so useful with any kind of like business. Like right now, my mindset is I would rather go on a sales call and someone give me a no with a really valid reason and articulate it, and someone say yeah and just sign up. Because if it's like a smaller, like the yeah is a bit of money right now.
Yeah.
That yes doesn't help you get more if there is a reason there that's secretly thinking but didn't share with you. Mm-hmm. So that I kind of phrase when I'm jumping on calls with people, I kind of say it in the emails. It helps get the call as well. Like say right now we're a startup and no with a reason it's just as valuable as a yes. So don't feel bad either way.
That's such a good line, by the way. No with a reason is more valuable than yes. That's gold. You should have that as a plaque on your wall. I might even use that for version 3 of the road. Honestly, that's ace, because it's so true.
Yeah, it helps you as a founder or a business owner get used to hearing no. But it's way more valuable to hear that. And people find it really hard to say no. Like we're humans. Going back to the whole,
you don't want to offend someone.
Yeah, if you reject someone, you offend someone, maybe you're kicked out of the tribe. So I think setting the stage by letting them know it's okay to say no. In fact, I quite like you to say no here. Get us out of that honest feedback that, like, we'll have calls with some kind of like really fantastic people. Yeah, love the platform, love it, absolutely love it. End of the call, there's nothing. And part of the reason is there was a reason in the back of the mind. They didn't want to use it or it didn't fit their needs. They didn't want to share it because they didn't want to hurt a passionate founder's feelings about his platform. So just setting the stage, saying, listen, I'd love you to say no and give me a reason, and please try and find something if you can, is super useful.
No, cool. Can I ask you about the pivot? What was it that made you, what was the change and what was it that made you change?
So the previous platform was a one-off steps challenges app, which companies could do office to office. There's a few issues with that. One, inclusion, but one which is like sustainable habits. If you had the Peloton bike for 1 week a year, that'd be great for the week, but what about the rest of the year? So we're the new platform companies sign up for, their employees then get access to that, and they have that all year round. So it's much more about tapping into that long-term psychology and trying to build sustainable habits. It's not a short, real spiky, we're going to go out, do little steps per week, and some people might carry on with some of those habits, but it won't quite stay. And the previous app, it was just you do a challenge and you get a nice dopamine hit, and that's it.
Okay.
With a new platform, we thought, okay, how can we really incentivize that? So we hook in with various like shops and brands to give you them vouchers. So if you go out, you hit your 10,000 steps a day, you're going to get like a £10 voucher at Amazon and all this kind of stuff. That is again, tapping into the elephant. That's the kind of carrot on the stick in front that helps our chimp brains to be more motivated. Even if you can't motivate yourself with fitness, most people are kind of money motivated in some way or another, that free money is always good. So we try and tap into more psychology with this app and make it more sustainable.
Where do you get your ideas from? Have you ever thought that
Uh,
through? Because as a prime example, so I do like to speak to a lot of people, which is ironic because in work time, everyone thinks I'm this really happy Steve that does podcasts and talk to people. But as soon as I go home, I'm knackered. So I put my hoodie on, head down, and I still work, but I do my own kind of stuff. But I do genuinely, even people that I don't like, I listen to. And I had this idea in the back of my mind that was just, I'd had it bubbling away and I was like, do I implement it? Do I not? And I was just one random conversation with someone and he introduced me to someone who's actually dead, but I discovered their work on YouTube. And I was like, that idea that I was thinking about doing is 100% the way to go. It's not a pivot, but something we're building into our app for like January onwards. But for you, where do you do you watch the games industry? Do you see what trends are? How do you kind of get your ideas for where to take the business in a year's 2 years time?
Yeah, it's a really good point about just talking to people and getting that kind of stimulus. I think creativity and ideas need two things: some kind of stimulus and some kind of space to smash two ideas together and figure something out. So there's kind of two components to creativity in my eyes. And the first part is just talking to people, anyone that you think might be interesting, even might not be interesting, just having chats with them. Like when we kind of reached out to each other on LinkedIn, I thought Steve looks really fascinating. Let's have a chat with him and just taking those opportunities to talk to people. Kind of feeding that brain with good stimulus that sets off all the good stuff in the brain. But also, and there's something that I think the modern world is making much harder, but taking the time to let ideas smash themselves together in the back of your brain and figure it out. So like my biggest thing for that, and it's becoming way more expensive recently, is the shower. I'll spend like 25 minutes in the shower in the morning just thinking about plans and trying to kind of think of new ideas. More recently, I've been so I work at home every day. We're a fully remote team. And every lunch, just trying to go out for a 20-minute walk, no AirPods, no phone, just like a cup of tea or a mug of tea in my hand, just walk and just have your brain and allow your brain to go into this default mode where it's still active enough to, like, if a bus is going to hit you, you'll step out of the way, but you're not like deliberately thinking about things, just kind of letting the brain wander. And in this highly stimulated kind of Gen Z world with everything, notifications, everything going off, trying to grab your attention, it's super uncomfortable. There's like studies been done showing that when your kind of brain stimulus drops, it does trigger like a kind of chemical feeling of being uncomfortable if you're so used to that. And it's like letting yourself just do nothing for a bit.
For me, I get a lot of the ideas driving. So it's the same thing where I'm functionally moving the car.
Yeah.
But actually, my subconscious is just computing away. I often think it's like a quantum computer where it just does stuff that you don't know how it's done it. But one of my really weird things, and people think I'm an absolute nut job when I say this, but I've actually started to thank my subconscious if it gives me a really good idea. Because it's like a whole other society of people in the back of your head that has huge unlimited capacity that our conscious brains don't. But when it'll piece things together or process things, or like I've been having a few sleepless nights recently, but I don't know if you ever get this, where you've got loads of good ideas and your brain's like firing away. So when I wake up, I email myself so I don't forget the idea. But it's just, I now make a conscious effort to thank my subconscious for giving me the idea in a way to reward that process. And people think I'm an absolute nut job for doing it, but for me, it kind of works. Or exercise. When you're running or playing, not so much basketball because I have to consciously be aware of stuff, but running, where you're pushing yourself to the point where you're really struggling to breathe and you don't really have to think too much. So I had a guy called Steve Ware on the podcast, and we were talking about mindfulness and meditation. And I think he hated me for saying it. But for me, it was to do with, he was trying to get you best practice to focus on your breath and focus on one thing, and that creates your attention, which does what you said in the shower to kind of free your mind and do more stuff. And I said to him, well, actually, I kind of get that either through running or sport or playing Call of Duty, where I'm so focused on one thing that all the stress just goes for that time because I'm not thinking about it. But the ability, I think, for people to tap into that, whatever that is so valuable.
I agree, and like you kind of touched on there, I think it's so different for for everyone. Like, if that is meditation, if that is driving where you realize you've gone past 4 roundabouts, have no idea how you got to where you were, or like, I think it is whatever works for people. I think there's with advice, I think there's a lot of people that say this is the way to go, this will get you that. And I think advice is just advice. And like, this is, I mean, that's advice, but I've got to maybe don't listen to that. But like, whenever people are kind of telling you things, I think I fell into the trap quite a lot of like, okay, someone said this, I respect them, that's the way to go. It shouldn't really be that. It should be, I don't listen to me this. It's up to me to work out what's what. And someone, like a fellow founder who I was chatting to a few weeks back, and they're kind of much later stage than us. They're raising their Series A, and I was chatting to him saying like, hey, can you help me out here? Like, have some advice. And we spent 20 minutes having a really good chat. And he's a very intelligent, very kind of well-experienced person. And at the end of it, he said, just bear in mind that all I'm doing is sharing with you my lottery numbers. That won't work for me again, and that won't work for you right now. You have to kind of take all the bits that relate to what you're doing, like you were saying with the YouTube videos or something. You kind of see a little bit that that bit works for me, that bit doesn't. Here's the way to go, and all that stuff. And I love the phrase that all I'm sharing with you is my lottery numbers. So that's quite cool.
No, I love the branded merch, by the way. I just see on your top, because basically where my camera is, I can't quite see the badge, but I looked at our actual feed. And it's just, I don't know about you, but having just branded merch for the startup just makes it feel more real.
It does. That was like the big day when we first got signed. We got some like sports t-shirts and a few jumpers, and especially now it's getting a bit colder in the UK as well. It's good to have a jumper to wear as well.
No, it's sweet. Back on the topic about getting ideas from people, one of the things, because one of the big pushes for my business will be like the PR and media side of what we're looking to do, especially with cost of living. And how I communicate that message is a key part to what will be the success or failure of the business. And what's really funny is that the one person who I think could help me the most is someone I really don't like. But almost because of that, I'm tempted to hire them because I know they'll give me honest feedback because they don't like me, but I'm going to take it as challenge. Because it's the classic thing of like when you have a board meeting, I'm always the difficult one when you wear the different hats to ask the difficult questions, because there's no problem in a closed room asking difficult questions, because it means you get to solve it before it's a public problem that you look to solve. But it's almost the idea where, although it's my baby and I'm really protective of it, I almost want someone to constructively rip it apart that I don't like, because I think afterwards I'll be better for it. Does that make sense?
It does. It really does. I think, any kind of challenges are good to make you rethink. So even if the challenge is completely invalid, you can think about it. And I always say with challenges, like either one or out of two things happens. Either it's a valid challenge and you think, I need to change something here, or the person that was challenging learned something that maybe they didn't know. Like you've got one information set, they've got another. So if they're part of your team and they're going to challenge all this stuff, either it's going to make the business better, or they're going to learn something, or you kind of figure something out. So I'd say go for it. That sounds exciting.
But it's that kind of thing where, like when you are a startup founder, you get to work with whoever you want to work with. And normally you pick people that you like, but almost as an experiment, picking someone that I actually don't like. And I know he's never going to watch this, so it doesn't really matter. But you know what I'm saying? It's that kind of, for me as a sports person, I only care about the result. I don't care what pivots we make, what changes we make, even if the answer was, look, Steve, the roadmap's great, but you shouldn't present it, fine. But it's that kind of thing of where it's how do you get better? Kobe Bryant, again, back to basketball, was famous for just being an absolute dickhead in many ways, but it was all about the result. It's all about winning the championship. How can he make people better? How can he get better? And just doing whatever needs to get done. And he's one of my idols. He's something I really kind of embrace with. So for you personally, what's the dream?
Such a broad question. Like, these are so deep. I need to have a good half-hour meditation before to think about it. But I think my dream is to be able to live a life where I can work on businesses that genuinely do good for people. I absolutely love games. I love strategy games, board games, and to me, a business is non-trivial, but it's still a strategy game, right? You've got a certain amount of pieces, a certain amount of resource. You can spend them how you want, and there's going to be a result at the end. It's kind of a game.
It's exactly a game. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I can spend my life working on cool businesses, basically playing really big games, but not to trivialize it again, and that genuinely do good for people. Like I love looking at our metrics, seeing that people have walked 1 million kilometers already in Miles, or they've done this much activity, or like we can track people's improvement before and after using Miles. We've got a test group of about 50 or 60 people, and we can see that the 12 months before they use Miles versus the month after they joined, they're 175% more active since using Miles.
Wow.
And that kind of, those metrics, actually, that's having a direct impact on someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of really gets me out of bed in the morning thinking we're actually doing some really cool stuff. So my dream is to be able to live a life where I can work on really cool business problems that do good for people. To go back to my previous point, the money side of it, which first got me into business, now is kind of like less relevant. There's like software engineering is a very lucrative area. Back I thought, you know what, I want to do something like this, and you get a real good kick by kind of feeling like you're doing genuine good for the world.
No, I just had an idea when you were talking. So one of the big things that when you're trying to engage behavior, it's about emotional benefits and, links to people. And it's to go from the feature of 1 million steps to almost, it's the fact that if you achieve this level, you have a 34% lower chance of getting cancer. You have this, but that's the kind of thing that I think will really drive people. Because one of the big things I have in my family is that unfortunately, almost all the men have or either died of cancer or they have cancer. This is like above 50,
Sure.
Or they have brain tumors and lots of other kind of stuff going on. But ironically, that I had a bit of a health scare. It's part of the reason why I got the bike, to really up my fitness. And I almost made the bargaining agreement with in my own head, but when I was waiting for the doctors, and it was to do with, if I'm okay, I just want to devote my life and really have this massive, desire and impact to really kind of do something with it. But it's having that thing to really help other people in a way that it's your emotional anchor. It's the one thing which you will always cling to, even when things you can't really be asked. And like, after today, I'm really tired, but I'm still going to get another. But it's just, it's the bigger purpose. But I think you have some magic there that will really help people unlock their own magic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And it kind of works both ways too, because by anyone doing something that helps other people, they also get a massive dopamine hit, and it makes them feel better as well. Having any kind of sense of responsibility is always, kind of, as humans, that's what drives. If you have a newborn child, that's what you need to look after. That drives you, gives you the purpose. And any kind of thing where you're helping someone else in any way, whether that's well-being or anything else, I think is always a good thing.
No, cool. I've really enjoyed this. Towards the end of all the interviews, as I can tell my voice is starting to go, I have two main questions that I tend to ask. The first one is that what's the best piece of advice you ever had?
Probably the thing earlier I was saying was about advice is just advice. I needed that, or when we touched on earlier about when to go full time. So there's a lot of people are maybe thinking about starting a business, or if you are looking into that, or when to make the plunge. One of my mentors that I really respect and look up to is a guy called Ross Slate, who works at a company called Samo, a big agency. And he was kind of describing it to me. And he said, just imagine you're like a cliff diver. They don't just go to the edge and jump. That'd be absolutely daft. You get all these signals. It's not one signal. You're not just looking at the tide. You're looking at the swell, the wind, the height, the rocks, the tide, other people doing it. Like, what are all these signals? And at some point, they'll never be able to write down all these signals, but they'll know from getting these signals, yes, this feels right now. And that would be my advice. Kind of picture it like that. If you are thinking about going full-time on something, committing to anything, look at all these signals, think about it, mull it over. Imagine you standing there on the cliff, shaking, about to jump. And at some point you'll know, and maybe even write down what those signals are for whatever you're doing. It might even be as simple as joining a sports team or something like that. Whatever big decision you're trying to make, what are those signals that are going to make you do it? And do you feel confident on them? And if so, that's when you can be a cliff diver.
No, it's cool. I love it. The next question, which is officially the last question at the interview. If you were to give advice to your younger self, so you can pick you at school, you at uni, you first starting out doing the apparel bit, it could even be you yesterday. If you were to give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
It's always hard because I don't think I've changed the path that I've taken, because I think it's got me here. But I think I would say that as well as like advice is just advice, but people are just people. I think it was very much of the mindset, like obviously grew up in a little village near Derby. It wasn't a big capital city, seeing these big, massive things. And you see these execs, these startup founders, these managers, whoever these people are, doing really well. And you kind of think that's not me, because that's separate. They're in New York, I'm in London, I'm doing this. I couldn't do that because of this. Until you realize that everyone's just a person, the same as like me and you, the same as everyone else. And people have very similar traits. Like you were saying earlier, people like sharing their advice, people like growing things, people like doing good for others on the whole. And yeah, not putting people on a pedestal just because of a job title or something like that. Most people are happy to talk. And if you want to do something big, like there's no reason why that can't be you over it. An exec that looks all shiny because they've had a big photo shoot and a really polished podcast, that's because they've had loads of editing and everything else gone to it as well.
I think it's a good one. Although saying that Elon Musk is hard to say he's just a normal dude, because some people are just outliers that, anyway. Honestly, I've really enjoyed kind of this. I love, and it's part of the reason why I like podcasts, because it's the free form nature of, we had some structure to the conversation, but actually you just kind of see where it goes. And that's the real magic that hopefully I've definitely learned some stuff, because there are great similarities what I'm trying to do and what you're kind of doing. And then likewise, I genuinely benefit from people's advice and ideas and stuff, because often someone said to me about 2 hours ago, "Oh, but Steve, aren't you on your own most of the day? Don't you ever worry about like speaking to people?" I was like, well, no, because I get to do this and I get to, do you know what I mean? So I find it really useful. Is there anything you would like to talk about or plug before we go?
I mean, if anyone does want to chat about anything, startup, employee wellbeing, anything else, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn to kind of back up the whole people to people thing. I'm always up for a coffee Zoom or a chat or anything. So it's just Toby Cannon on LinkedIn, Cannon like the gun, like cannonball, Toby Cannon. Or if people want to check out the product, myleswellbeing.com, and that's Miles with a Y. The amount of emails or calls I get called Miles. My name's Toby, but the business is called Miles. And if anyone's seen this podcast and want to have a test drive or play around, just plug the Roadmap MBA podcast when you get in touch, and we can set you up with a free pilot or a free 2-month trial. Oh,
cool. Out of interest, have you bought, if it's available, the Miles web address with spelt the wrong way?
We haven't yet, but I probably should before.
I think you should. As silly as it sounds with the roadmap, I own every single combination of everything that you could possibly think of, just in case either people type it in wrong or someone tries to copy. But I think for your one, it's second guessing all the different things that people might type in wrong, but it still comes to you. And for the sake of 16 quid a year or something, it was just, again, it's learning from user behavior. It's one of the things that blows my mind. I was at a Tesco cash machine outside my local supermarket, and there was a little girl. She's probably like 12, 15 on her phone, but the speed that she was using, I assume it was Snapchat or Instagram, like it blew my mind. And I'm on those platforms, so I'm like a granddad now compared to some of these kids. But just the way that people actually use stuff or do stuff is different to how they tell you that they'll do it. And they never tell you when they get it wrong. So one of the challenges I've got is that we've just launched a new platform ourselves. If you ask people to do user testing, they'll tell you everything that works. They're like, yeah, it's great. But it's like, yeah, but I want to see you. How are you scrolling? How are you doing the stuff? And actually, any easy wins like the Miles, but spelt the other way, buy it and just 301 forward it to your site just as an easy, quick win. Thank you genuinely for your time today. It's been wonderful to kind of catch up, and I'll definitely continue to kind of pick your brains with what we're doing. And I think it's brilliant business, but I love the way that you think about it as well. And actually, the idea of looking at business as a sport or a game is one of my big things. And again, a basketball reference, but there's a guy called Mark Cuban, that's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. And he basically talks about how business is arguably the world's biggest sport because everyone plays, it's 24 hours a day, it doesn't stop, and you can never win. But actually, the tools and the tokens and the time and whatever is the same for everyone, if that makes sense. And it's fine. It's good to find people, good people to play with as well. So Toby, thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure. Stay in touch, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Mark. Great to chat, Steve.
No worries. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
See ya.